Friday the 13th is known for its disgusting kills, but some characters are so evil, they deserve what Jason does to them. So today, I'll be ranking every deserved death in the Friday the 13th franchise. And the #1 spot shocked even me. Plus, there's one death everyone thinks isn't deserved, but I will convince you it is. Before that, let's look at one of the most annoying idiot's death in the franchise, Shelly Finkelstein. Shelly Finkelstein is an insecure prankster who does fake death pranks and jump scares everyone because he thinks it's funny. Everything seems fine as Shelly wanders around pulling his usual stunts. He's got his fake blood, his fake ass acting, and the complete disregard for how his pranks affect others. The warning signs are everywhere. His friends are getting genuinely annoyed. Vera keeps telling him to stop.
Stop fooling around, man.
And even the nicest people are losing patience. Suddenly, Shelly decides to head to the barn for another prank setup, and that's when Jason makes his move. Jason ambushes Shelly in the barn and slits a blade deep through his throat. Shelly can't do much with blood just pouring from his neck, trying to get help from his friends. But here's the plot twist. Everyone thinks it's just another one of his stupid pranks. They roll their eyes and walk away as he's literally dying. He collapses, gasping and choking on his own blood, while his so-called friends ignore his genuine cries for help. The boy who cried wolf finally meets the real wolf, but annoying pranks are manageable. The next person was actually really evil, Axel Burns. Axel Burns works as a coroner at the local hospital morgue, which means he's supposed to be examining Jason's dead body professionally. Instead, this creep is more interested in watching aerobics videos and hitting on the nurses. He's got one job, and he's completely ignoring it. For a moment, it looks like a normal night shift at the morgue. Axel's got his feet up, ogling women on TV while Jason's corpse lies unattended on the table. The warning signs are everywhere. He's unprofessional, clearly has inappropriate thoughts about the bodies in his care, and keeps making sleazy comments to Nurse Morgan.
Get lost, Axel. I'm busy. I've had more than enough of you for one night.
And yeah, watching workout videos instead of doing your job around dead bodies is beyond creepy. Suddenly, Jason's hand twitches and falls off the table, but Axel is too busy being a pervert to notice the killer coming back to life. Jason rises from the table like the undead monster he is. Axel finally looks up from his disgusting entertainment just in time to see death approaching. Jason grabs a bone saw and slices clean through Axel's throat. The blade cuts deep, severing arteries and windpipe in one brutal motion. Axel tries to scream, but only blood comes out. Jason then twists his neck with a sickening crack, nearly decapitating him completely. Talk about getting fired from the worst job ever. At least he only abused corpses, but this uncle tortured living children. Charles McCulloch. Charles McCulloch is Rennie's uncle and legal guardian, which should make him a protector. Instead, he's an abusive monster who traumatized his niece as a child by nearly drowning her. Now they're on a boat heading to New York, and Charles is still treating everyone around him like garbage. Everything seems fine on the luxury cruise ship as passengers enjoy their trip to Manhattan, but the warning signs about Charles are immediate. He's cruel to Rennie, dismissive of other passengers, and clearly hasn't changed since his child-abusing days. His past keeps bubbling up through Rennie's flashbacks of being pushed underwater as a little girl. Nearly drowning a kid because you're having a bad day isn't exactly Uncle of the Year material. Suddenly, the ship reaches New York and Jason starts his rampage through the city, hunting down everyone who escaped the boat. Jason corners Charles in a back alley near some industrial buildings. Charles tries to run, but Jason grabs him by the head and drags him toward a large vat of toxic waste. The chemicals are bubbling and steaming, clearly poisonous. Jason forces Charles's head down toward the toxic liquid. Charles struggles desperately, but Jason's supernatural strength is overwhelming. He pushes the abuser's head deep into the vat of waste. Charles's screams grow quiet as the toxic chemicals burn his skin and fill his lungs. Poetic justice? The man who nearly drowned a child dies drowning in poison. But childhood trauma is just the beginning. This boyfriend made abuse an art form. Trey Cooper. Trey Cooper is the classic bad boy boyfriend who thinks intimidation equals masculinity. He's dating Gib, but treats her like his personal property rather than a girlfriend. They're at a party where Trey's controlling behavior is on full display for everyone to see. For a moment, it looks like a typical college party with drinking and hookups. Trey's got his arm around Gib possessively, making subtle threats and putting her down in front of others. The warning signs are everywhere. He talks over her, makes decisions for her, and gives off serious "don't cross me" vibes. His body language screams potential violence, and Gib looks genuinely afraid to disagree with him. And yeah, emotionally terrorizing your girlfriend at a party isn't exactly romantic. Suddenly, Trey and Gib head upstairs to a bedroom, and that's when Jason decides to crash their private moment. Jason appears in the doorway while Trey is lying on the bed. Trey barely has time to register the masked killer before Jason drives his machete straight down through the mattress. The blade pierces Trey's back multiple times, pinning him to the bed springs below. Blood soaks through the sheets as Trey screams in agony, but Jason isn't finished. He grabs the foot of the bed and folds it upward like a sandwich. The metal frame bends and crushes Trey's spine with multiple sickening cracks. His body contorts at impossible angles as the bed becomes his coffin. Perfect Perfect karma for someone who spent his life breaking others emotionally. That guy was subtle about his cruelty. This diner owner made no effort to hide her awfulness. Joey B runs a small diner where she serves food with a side of verbal abuse. She's loud, rude, and treats every customer like they personally ruined her day. Her restaurant should be a place of comfort, but instead it's a hostile environment where people get insulted for ordering food.
Fuck out. This is a restaurant, not a fucking nursery.
Everything seems normal in the small-town diner with its classic American atmosphere. But the warning signs about Joey are immediate. She berates customers, uses curse language constantly, and shows zero hospitality or basic human decency. Every interaction is an opportunity for her to make someone feel small and unwelcome. She's the kind of person who turns ordering breakfast into a humiliating experience. And yeah, verbally abusing people who just want a meal isn't exactly good business practice. Suddenly, Jason arrives, but he's possessing Robert Campbell's body, so Joey doesn't realize she's facing the Crystal Lake Killer. Joey sees the possessed Campbell acting strangely and decides to confront him aggressively. She starts yelling and threatens to throw him out of her establishment. Jason, in Campbell's body, moves toward her with inhuman purpose. Joey tries to fight back, swinging her fists and screaming more insults. Jason casually brings his elbow back and drives it straight into her face. The impact caves her entire mouth inward, crushing teeth, jaw, and tongue in one devastating blow. Her skull cracks audibly as bone fragments pierce her brain. Finally, blessed silence from the mouth that never said anything good. At least she was equally awful to everyone. These bikers targeted the innocent. Fox. Fox is part of a three-person motorcycle gang that includes Ali and Loco. They're leather-clad troublemakers who roam around looking for people to intimidate and harass. When they encounter Shelly and Vera at a gas station, Fox immediately decides these teenagers would make perfect victims for their entertainment. Everything seems like a routine stop for gas and snacks at the small roadside station. But the warning signs about the biker gang are immediate. They're loud, aggressive, and clearly looking for trouble. Fox steals Vera's wallet just to watch her panic, then forces the girl to beg for it back while calling Fox ma'am.
May I please have the wallet, ma'am?
The humiliation is deliberate and cruel, and the other bikers laugh at the teenagers' discomfort. And yeah, terrorizing random people for fun isn't exactly the trait of decent human beings. Suddenly, the bikers decide to follow Shelly and Vera back to Crystal Lake to escalate their harassment campaign. The biker gang arrives at the property and immediately starts causing trouble, planning to burn down the barn. But Jason has been hiding in that exact barn, and he doesn't appreciate the intrusion. Fox enters first, confident and aggressive as always. Jason steps out of the shadows and takes a pitchfork from the wall. He drives the sharp prong straight through Fox's neck, piercing her throat and cervical spine. The metal teeth punch through the other side, lifting her off the ground. Blood pours from the wounds as Fox gurgles and thrashes helplessly. Jason holds her suspended on the pitchfork like a piece of meat. That's what happens when bullies pick the wrong victim. Make sure to subscribe because these deserved deaths are about to get even more insane. Those bikers were just mean. This woman was downright toxic to her own family. Ethel Hubbard. Ethel Hubbard lives near the halfway house for troubled teens and makes everyone's life miserable with her constant hostility. She's foul-mouthed, aggressive, and incredibly toxic to everyone around her. What makes her truly despicable is that she even talks trash about her own deceased son, showing zero respect for family or basic human decency. Everything seems quiet around the rural halfway house where troubled kids are trying to rebuild their lives. But the warning signs about Ethel are everywhere. She screams at the teenagers, uses the most vulgar language possible, and creates conflict wherever she goes. What makes her truly despicable is that she even talks trash about her own deceased son, showing zero respect for family or basic human decency. Everything seems quiet around the rural halfway house where troubled kids are trying to rebuild their lives. But the warning signs about Ethel are everywhere. She screams at the teenagers, uses the most vulgar language possible, and creates conflict wherever she goes. She shows up uninvited just to start arguments and spread negativity. Her own family can't stand her, and she responds by insulting their memory. And yeah, trash-talking your dead child isn't exactly Mother of the Year behavior. Suddenly, Roy Burns, the fake Jason, decides Ethel's toxic presence needs to be permanently eliminated. Roy approaches Ethel's property while she's cooking stew and stirring up trouble as usual. She sees him coming and starts screaming insults and threats. Roy raises a large cleaver above his head and brings it down with tremendous force. The blade splits Ethel's skull down the middle, cleaving through bone and brain tissue. The impact sends her tumbling forward into the large pot of boiling stew she was tending. Her face sinks into the boiling liquid as blood mixes with the food. Steam rises as her flesh cooks in the very stew she was preparing. She spent her life stirring up hatred and died in her own stew. Talk about poetic justice. But family cruelty is nothing compared to professional manipulation. Dr. Cruz. Dr. Cruz is supposed to be helping Tina Shepard deal with her telekinetic powers and childhood trauma. Instead, this manipulative psychiatrist is exploiting her abilities for his own research and personal gain. He's brought Tina back to Crystal Lake under the guise of therapy, but he's really just using her as a test subject. Everything seems professional in the therapeutic setting as Dr. Cruz conducts his sessions with Tina, but the warning signs are everywhere. He pushes her to use her dangerous powers, shows more interest in documenting her abilities than treating her trauma, and puts her in increasingly dangerous situations. He manipulates her psychological wounds to trigger telekinetic episodes for his research. When Jason appears, Cruz uses Tina's mother as a human shield. And yeah, exploiting a traumatized teenager for scientific gain isn't exactly ethical medical practice. Suddenly, Jason corners Dr. Cruz in the house, and there's nowhere left for the cowardly doctor to hide. Jason grabs a large saw and advances on the terrified psychiatrist. Cruz tries to run, but trips over furniture in his panic. Jason catches him and drives the saw blade into his chest. The teeth cut through skin, muscle, and bone as Jason pushes deeper. Cruz screams as the saw tears through his ribcage and internal organs. Jason continues sawing, opening Cruz from chest to stomach in a brutal vertical cut. Blood and organs spill out as the doctor's body splits apart. Though the MPAA cut most of the gore, the death still delivers satisfying justice. Sometimes the cure is worse than the disease, but not this time. That doctor was subtle in his evil. This rich girl made no effort to hide her cruelty. Melissa Parr. Melissa Parr is the stereotypical rich girl who thinks her money makes her superior to everyone else. She's at Crystal Lake with friends, but spends most of her time looking down on others and making cruel comments. Her arrogance and entitlement are on full display as she treats people like servants. Everything seems like a typical wealthy kids party at the lake house, with expensive clothes and attitudes to match. But the warning signs about Melissa are immediate. She insults other people constantly, shows zero empathy or kindness, and acts like everyone else exists to serve her. Her condescending comments cut deep, and she seems to enjoy making others feel inferior. She's the perfect example of every bad stereotype about spoiled rich kids. And yeah, treating people like garbage because you have money isn't exactly endearing behavior. Suddenly, Jason crashes the party, and Melissa's money can't buy her safety from the Crystal Lake killer. Melissa encounters Jason in the house and immediately starts screaming orders at him like he's a servant. Jason responds by grabbing a large axe from the wall. He raises it high above his head and brings it down with devastating force. The blade cleaves straight through Melissa's skull, splitting her head nearly in half. Blood and brain matter explode outward as the axe embeds deep in her cranium. Jason then lifts her corpse and hurls it across the room like a rag doll. Her body crashes into the wall and slides down, leaving a bloody smear. Money can't buy everything, especially not mercy from Jason Voorhees, but old money snobbery can't compete with new money arrogance. Trent Sutton. Trent Sutton is the spoiled college rich kid who owns the lake house where the 2009 remake takes place. He's everything wrong with privileged youth, arrogant, entitled, and completely lacking in empathy. When Clay shows up looking for his missing sister, Trent treats him like dirt for no reason other than class prejudice. Everything seems like a perfect party weekend at the expensive lake house with Trent showing off his family's wealth. But the warning signs are everywhere. He bullies Clay, who's just trying to find his sister, cheats on his girlfriend without remorse, and treats his supposed friends with contempt. He flaunts his money constantly and looks down on anyone who doesn't match his economic status. His entitlement knows no bounds, and he seems incapable of basic human decency. And yeah, bullying someone whose sister is missing isn't exactly compassionate behavior. Suddenly, Jason emerges from the woods, and Trent's privileged life is about to end in the most brutal way possible. Jason corners Trent near the main road and drives his machete straight through the rich boy's chest. The blade pierces completely through his torso, emerging from his back in a fountain of blood. But Jason isn't finished with this elaborate kill. He lifts Trent up on the machete like a trophy. Then Jason begins sawing back and forth, the blade cutting through ribs and organs. Trent screams as he's literally sawed in half while still alive. Finally, Jason slams him down onto the spikes of a passing truck. The metal spears pierce through multiple parts of his body as the vehicle drives away, carrying Trent's corpse like a gruesome ornament. His body got carried off on the back of that truck like the trash he always was. That death was artistic, but some perverts deserve something more direct. Debbie. Debbie is a toxic character who makes everyone around her miserable through constant bullying and emotional manipulation. She's at Crystal Lake with friends, but spends most of her time creating drama and tearing other people down. Her selfish actions and cruel behavior show a complete lack of empathy for anyone else. Everything seems like a normal group vacation at the lake house with friends enjoying their time together. But the warning signs about Debbie are immediate. She bullies other characters constantly, creates unnecessary conflict wherever she goes, and shows zero consideration for anyone's feelings. She loses her temper to get what she wants and seems to like seeing others in pain. She's the kind of person who ruins every group activity with her toxic presence. And yeah, emotionally destroying your friends for entertainment isn't exactly vacation behavior. Suddenly, Debbie finds herself alone, and that's when her series of selfish decisions finally catch up with her. Debbie is chilling in a hammock when Jason shows up. She tries to swim away, but her own selfishness has isolated her from any help. He holds her head down and stabs her right through the chest. Ouch. Her toxic behavior led to this moment of isolation where no one was around to help, but none of these were anywhere near as insane as the next one. Roy Burns. Roy Burns is the ultimate deserving death because he's not just a terrible person. He's a psychotic serial killer masquerading as Jason Voorhees. After his son Joey gets killed at the halfway house, Roy completely loses his mind and goes on a brutal murder spree while wearing Jason's iconic hockey mask. He represents the worst kind of of grief-driven madness. Everything seems like the Jason saga continuing as usual, with the hockey-masked killer stalking new victims around Crystal Lake. But the warning signs that something's different are everywhere. This Jason is more erratic, more personally motivated, and targeting people connected to his son's death. Roy kills with anger and no control, unlike Jason. He's not supernatural, just a grieving dad who turned his pain into deadly rage. And yeah, murdering innocent people because you're sad about your son isn't exactly healthy coping. Suddenly, the truth about the fake Jason is revealed, and Roy's psychotic masquerade comes to a violent end. Roy's reign of terror finally catches up with him when he's confronted by the surviving characters. In his final moments, the truth about his identity is exposed, and his madness reaches its peak. The killing blow comes when he falls out of the barn and gets impaled. If you enjoyed this video and want to see Stranger Things fates worse than death, click the video on screen.